garlic bread, but way better. This is cheesy garlic bread sourdough focaccia. It is absolutely incredible. I made this a few years ago. I developed this recipe with all this cheese and herbs and garlic and oh my goodness, just the best. And my friend was like, I want that for my birthday. Not cake, not anything sweet. She put this on a cake plate. That was her birthday, her birthday gift and her birthday treat. And it is no wonder because, oh my goodness, this is absolutely incredible. You're gonna love it. I'm Amy from Amy Bakes Bread. You can find this recipe on amybakesbread.com. Let's make it together. I just printed out this recipe for my cheesy garlic sourdough focaccia. It is like garlic bread, but so much better. You can imagine like the crispy crust. Oh, it's all so good. I'm gonna go ahead and start mixing up the dough for this. Don't be scared off by the long list of ingredients here because it's all done at different times and it's actually pretty easy. So I'm gonna walk you through this whole process step by step. It is one of the most popular recipes on my website for good reason, and I think you're gonna love it. We're gonna put a container. You could use a bowl. I'm using a container today, which I like for coil folds. I also like these if you are making like a double batch or something like that. I just like using them sometimes, and my bowls are all being used for different things today. So I'm using a container, sticking it on my scale. Definitely use a kitchen scale. You're working with a really high hydration dough. This means like a lot of water in the dough compared to the flour. And so you may not know how it's supposed to feel if you're using cup measurements. So use those weight measurements if you can. It's gonna help. I have here my sourdough starter, which I fed last night. It is right bubbly active, ready for me this morning. In the recipe, it actually has the lavage, tells you how to make that the night before. It's basically just taking part of your starter, feeding it so that it's the specific amount you need for this recipe. Okay, you can use active sourdough starter or you can do that lavage method. A lavage is kind of a best practice, especially if you've been keeping your starter in the refrigerator. Highly recommend to use that method. But if you're feeding your starter almost daily and it's being kept on your countertop, it's okay to just use a bubbly active ripe sourdough starter. So that's what I've got here. We're gonna add our starter to our container and we're doing 100 grams. I went a little bit over. So I'm just gonna take a little bit out of there, put it back into my jar. You can go a little over, a little under with starter. It's not that big of a deal. Let me go get this off of my hands. We're gonna add in the water. Now the temperature of the water really matters in this. So I like to keep my water temperature anywhere from usually around 78 degrees. That's gonna just help my dough, to be that temperature. Especially if it's cold outside, you really want to help bring up the temperature with some warmer water. Sourdough works best in that temperature range of like 76 to 80 degrees. The wild yeast and the bacteria, they work best together. So keeping your dough at that temperature is just gonna give you a better bake in general. It doesn't mean you can't make this if it's lower or even a little bit higher, but you just have to be a little, know that it's gonna maybe take longer if it's colder or that it will go faster if it's warmer. All right. I like to just kind of mix up the starter and the water together here. We're doing bread flour in this. I tore my scale, adding in my bread flour. Now this is a really high hydration dough. What that means is there's a lot of water compared to the flour. So I think it's like 80% or maybe even a little higher than that when you account for the starter that's in it. So what that means is it's gonna feel very, very sticky. If you are uncomfortable with that, you can add a little bit less water, maybe do 400 grams of water instead of the 425. Or if you're just starting out, I'm adding in my salt now. If you're just starting out, then maybe start with a little bit less water. The reason we do so much water is because it's what gives those like airy, fluffy, light crumb to your focaccia. And that's what I love about this bread. And so that's why I like to keep it like a really higher hydration. But it will still taste good if you lower the water a little bit. It will still be pretty high hydration. Okay, we're gonna mix this up and just get a nice shaggy dough. And then once it's all kind of mixed together and all of the flour has been hydrated here, it's gotten some water in it here, then we're gonna cover it and we'll come back and do some simple coil folds every 30 minutes over a period of 2 hours. So I'm gonna show you how this dough changes over that time. We're also gonna add in our cheese and our herbs. And we put the garlic on at the end, and we actually bake this in like a garlic herb oil. I love this little tool for getting into the nooks and crannies of these, dough containers and just getting everything wiped down all together. But anyway, we're gonna add the garlic at the end to this recipe because garlic has these antimicrobial properties, which means that it interferes with like the fermentation of the dough, which means your dough may not rise very well if you add the garlic too soon. So we're adding in the garlic after the dough has basically completely risen and is ready to be baked. We top it with garlic and we put a garlic herb oil that it rises in, so the garlic isn't in the dough, it's just on the outside. Anyway, that's how this is gonna come together. You can see how wet this dough is. That's just from the initial mixing it up. We're gonna set the lid on top. I wanna take the temperature of it first though. Here we go. Love these thermometers. Highly recommend you grab a kitchen thermometer. All right, we are right at about 79 degrees. So I'm probably gonna keep this warm in a bread proofer, or you could also use your oven with the light turned on, but you may have to like kind of go back and forth, check the temperature every 30 minutes or so. Make sure your oven's not getting too hot and don't turn your oven on. Some people use like boiling water in a microwave. Just find a way, or a warm appliance even, and monitor that temperature so that you know how your dough is doing. That's just gonna tell you when it's gonna be ready. If you can know the temperature, you're gonna know, okay, I added this much starter, I know the temperature. It should be ready to shape into the pan in about 4 hours if I keep it in this temperature range. All of that is in my recipe. I even have a baker's schedule in there, in the recipe post, that you can go and see, like, if I keep the dough at this temperature, this is about when all of these steps are gonna take place, okay? It's an easy recipe. There's just a lot of little steps to follow, and there's a lot of kind of waiting around for your dough to rise. That's sourdough for you. We're gonna keep this warm, come back to it in 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes. Look at how this dough looks so far. I am getting my hands a little bit damp, and I'm gonna come in and do my first set of coil folds in here for this cheesy focaccia, which we haven't added the cheese yet, but look, we're just going up, kind of performing this coil motion. But as you can see, that didn't stretch all the way, right? I still have some here. So I'm gonna turn it. You don't wanna pull up and have the dough rip. So you wanna stop before it could rip, okay? So I'm gonna come back, turn it again. I just try to get the dough all together. It will come together, starting to come together. You gather up the dough. You want it to release from the bottom. This is a very wet dough. So if you're saying this feels very sticky, yes, it does feel very sticky. You can see how it's even sticking to my fingers. I get my hands a little bit wet and work with it again. If you feel like this is too high hydration for you, see how that's changed so much. If you feel like that's too high hydration, go ahead and decrease some of the water in the dough the next time you make it. Okay, we're gonna let this rest for another 30 minutes, and then we will come back and add in our cheese. I'm gonna get the cheese and the herbs and stuff ready while this is resting right now. We're gonna add that in our next set of folds. My focaccia dough is rising. I want to add this cheese mixture into the dough during the second and third coil folds. So I'm gonna mix up the mixture and then we'll add half of it on the second coil fold and half of it on the third coil fold, and we'll get all that cheese into the dough. Okay, so we're gonna start. I'm gonna put some Parmesan. I really recommend grating your own cheese. The only caveat with this is sometimes Parmesan ends up being fine not to, but this kind of like a mozzarella, definitely grate it yourself. A cheddar, grate it yourself. A lot of cheeses can have these like anti-caking agents on them, and it can just mess up your cheese a little bit. So, but Parmesan I found to be okay, but if you want to grate it yourself, it would be delicious that way too. So I've got my Parmesan in here. We're doing a combination of mozzarella, of Monterey Jack, and of sharp cheddar. This may seem like a lot of cheese to you. That's because it is a lot of cheese, but it's also just so super yummy and gooey and just delicious. One of my friends said, I don't want a birthday cake for my birthday. Can you please just make me this? So definitely is a celebratory fun bake for a gathering. We have our whole big bowl of cheese here. We're just gonna kind of toss it together. And then we're gonna add in the herbs on top of this and toss them together as well. Mixing up the cheese just so it gets all nice and mixed together. And then we're gonna add in oregano. It's one of my favorite herbs. And some basil. And we're gonna toss this all together. Okay, I misspoke earlier. We're actually going to only add half of this mixture in during the coil folds, during the second coil fold. And then we're gonna save the other half of it and we're gonna top the focaccia with it. So you get a lot of cheese throughout, but then you get this crispy, crusty cheese on the top that's just so delicious. It's been another 30 minutes. We're gonna take this out and do our second set of coil folds. Okay, we're ready for our second set of coil folds. I have our cheese mixture right here, and we're gonna go ahead and add half of the cheese mixture on top of the dough. The other half we will reserve for topping the dough with when we bake it. So I'm gonna actually cover this up with some plastic wrap and stick it in the fridge so it's ready for when I wanna bake it. We're gonna come in here, I'm gonna get my hands a little bit damp. I like to loosen it. We're gonna come and coil in the cheese and the herbs. I find that it's easy to coil fold inclusions in. I mean, they may, come over here and I just add them back onto the top, and we just keep going around adding as we can. Over the next couple of folds, more and more are going to be added to this dough, and it's going to really start to come together. You notice that did break a second ago. That's okay if that happens. Just kind of telling you, all right, need to be done for now. We're gonna cover it up. Still keep it that 78-degree range, and we'll come back in 30 minutes. We're on set number 3. You can see how the dough has spread back out again. That's what we're looking for here. We're gonna give another nice little set of folds in here. The cheese really kind of tightens this up a little bit. Makes it easy to do those folds. And then any little bits of cheese that haven't been in there, I just kind of put on top and press into the dough. It smells so good. We're gonna let that rest again, and we'll give it one more set of folds in about 30 minutes. This is my last set of coil folds. You can see how that cheese is nice and evenly distributed now. Just doing a couple more folds here. That's perfect. We're gonna let this rise again for another probably hour and a half to 2 hours, and then we will get it in the pan. It's been about an hour and a half or so. You can see how much this dough has really filled out this container. It's doming, it's got little bubbles throughout. It's a little harder to see with all that cheese in there, but this is ready now to shape. And by shaping, all we're gonna be doing is plopping it into a pan. I'm using today a 9 by 13 pan. Now, if you are not using a metal pan, like if you're using a glass pan or a ceramic pan, put some parchment paper down in your pan first. That's gonna help to be able to get your focaccia up out of the pan easier. Sometimes I'll do that anyway, but we're gonna be putting enough oil on the bottom here that it should be okay with a metal pan, though you do wanna make sure you're using a non-stick pan if possible. Okay, before we move our focaccia into here, we're gonna mix up our garlic oil. Herb oil. So I've got here butter. I've melted this butter and I'm gonna add to it some olive oil. This may seem like a lot of oil. It is kind of a lot of oil. It's a lot. But this is what gets that super crispy, delicious focaccia base. This is the first time we're also adding in our garlic. So we're gonna do about 3 grams of garlic powder. And then we're just gonna add a little bit of this oregano and basil and just a little salt. And this is this herb oil that it's going to be baking in and around, and it just gives the best flavor. So we're gonna mix up the oil and we're gonna pour it right in the pan, about half of the oil. The other half we're gonna top the focaccia with. You just wanna make sure that gets all around that pan. Even up the edges a little bit if you can. I wanna make sure every little bit of this is covered. All right. Ready to move my dough over there. In it goes. And I just, see how nice and oily that is underneath? Now it's gonna stick together. I just gently try to spread it out with my fingers so that it gets into every part of this pan. Okay, and then we're gonna add the rest of the herb oil right on top. You can see this is not ready to dimple yet because there's not as much air in there. It needs to rise for another couple of hours before we can dimple it. So I'm adding the rest of the herb oil right on the top there. Spread it all around. We're gonna cover this and let it rise probably another couple of hours. I like to let it rise about 78 degrees, another couple hours, then we'll come in and dimple it, add some fresh garlic on top, and bake it up. All right, our cheesy garlic focaccia bread is ready to go. Look how much it's puffed up in here. It's ready for me to dimple it. I'm gonna add on some garlic, just fresh garlic. I'll use my garlic press. Just sprinkle it all around here. And then we'll add on the reserved cheese that I just pulled out of the fridge. And we're gonna bake it up for 425, I think, for about 25-30 minutes. Let me double check that time. We're gonna bake this up at 425 degrees for about 25-30 minutes. It's gonna be crispy, cheesy, absolutely incredible. Let's dimple it up. All right, I've got my garlic press here, and I'm just going to press this garlic over the top. And we can I just like to spread it around a little bit just so it gets a little more garlic. I love garlic. You could add more garlic than this if you wanted to. This is just the amount that I do, but the amount my kids will tolerate. I love, love, love all of this you know, raw garlic. But the thing is, when it gets baked a little bit, you got to add it now because the garlic can impact how it ferments, how the dough ferments. You want to make sure that it ferments okay. All right, adding on this cheese on top. This is so good. And then we're gonna bubble it up here. Oh my goodness, my favorite part. Look at all those bubbles coming up. The cheese kind of impedes them a little bit, but you can kind of see them coming up there. This is gorgeous. Okay, I'm gonna stick it in the oven, 425 for about 25-30 minutes. Oh my goodness. Oh. Wow. Look at that. This has got to be one of my top favorites. This is crispy, cheesy, ooey gooey. We're gonna let this stay in the pan for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we will pull it out and taste it. Okay, after about 5 minutes, I like to go around the edges of my pan and just make sure that they are released. All that oil should help, and if you have a nonstick pan, that will help too. And then I also like to kind of go under and make sure that the bottom is released as well. Okay, looks good. We're gonna move this over to our cooling rack. You guys, look how beautiful that is. Cheesy. Oh, the bottom, look at the bottom of this. Oh, so good. We want to let this cool, but I've got to take a little sliver because, you know me, I can never let bread cool all the way. Wow. Look how beautiful that is. Oh yeah. That's worth every bit of cheese, every bit of oil. It's birthday worthy for sure. Grab the recipe on my website, amybakesbread.com. Can't wait to see you make it.